Hello, Michigan! If you are a U.S. citizen who will be 18 or older by November 8th, 2016, a resident of any county in Michigan, and are not currently incarcerated, congratulations! You have come to the right video because you can vote. First, you need to register though, and if you're not sure whether or not you're registered already, there's a link in the description where you can go check right now. If you're not registered or you've moved or changed your name since the last election, you'll have to register by mail. I know that's a pain and it's going to cost you a stamp, but you can print off a form using the link below and mail it in by October 11th if you want to be registered in time for the November presidential election. Otherwise, you can find a paper application at your local Secretary of State branch office or city, county, or township clerk's office if you don't have access to a printer. Links to all of those offices are in the description. Once you've registered, you get to vote. In most cases, you're going to be voting in person on November 8th, but you can vote absentee by mail if you will be out of state on election day. That includes if you're a student in another state but would prefer to vote in Michigan, you're over 60, or you can't vote without assistance, or if you have a religious belief that doesn't allow you to get to the polls. If any of those apply to you, you can request a ballot by printing out the form in the link below and mailing it to your local clerk. You can request your ballot anytime between now and November 5th at noon, but the sooner you get your request in, the longer you'll have to look it over and research candidates and vote before you send it in by November 8th. For everyone else, there's a link to find out where you need to go vote in person on November 8th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and you'll need to show a photo ID. A driver's license, state ID, student ID, passport, military, or tribal ID are all acceptable. You can also go to michigan.gov/vote to look at a sample ballot that tells you everything you'll be able to vote for besides the presidential election. You don't have to vote on every single thing on the ballot. You can leave things blank if you want to, but your local elections can be very important, so it's worth checking out what's on there ahead of time. You can even print out and fill out a sample ballot, bring it with you to the polls so you don't forget what you wanted to vote for. All the links to check your registration and polling location and get your sample ballot are in the description. Thank you for voting. Hello, Massachusetts! If you want to vote, first you need to be registered to vote. You can check your registration status right now using the link in the description. If you're not registered or you need to update your name or address, you can go to the link in the description and register online right now as long as you have a Massachusetts driver's license or state ID. If you don't have one of those things, like if you're a student from another state or you just don't drive, you'll still use the same link to fill out your registration form. They'll ask you to print out the form at the end, sign it, and mail it in. You've got until October 19th to register, but you might as well open up a new tab right now and get started. Once you've registered, there are a few different ways you can vote. In a few cases, if you're going to be out of state on election day or you have a disability or religious belief that prevents you from getting to the polls, you can apply to vote absentee by mail. There's a link to the form down in the description that you can fill out and mail or email to your local election commissioner. There's also a link to all their contact info. You have until November 7th at noon to apply to vote absentee, but the sooner the better, so there's enough time for that ballot to get to you in the mail and for you to fill it out and do all the research you want to do to send it back by November 8th. This is also the first election that any registered Massachusetts voter can vote early in person. If you want to do that, you can go to your city or town clerk's office from October 24th through November 4th during normal business hours to cast your ballot. Some clerks will have special evening and weekend hours available too, so check your local clerk's website, they're linked below, to find out when and where you can vote early. If you want to vote in person on November 8th though, there's a link below that will tell you where you need to go to vote. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and you may be asked to show ID, especially if this is your first time voting. A driver's license or state ID, utility bill or bank statement, or any printed ID with your name and address on it all count. So bring one of those just in case. I also recommend bringing a sample ballot. You can get one of those at your town or city clerk's website and it'll tell you everything that you'll be able to vote for in addition to the presidential election this year. Of course, you don't have to vote for every single thing on the ballot, but it's helpful if you want a chance to do some research on the candidates in your local elections. You can even fill your sample ballot out and bring it to the polls with you so you can remember how you want to vote. There will be links in the description for everything you need to check your registration, vote early, find your polling place, and get your sample ballot in the description. Thank you for voting. Hello, Maryland! I'm really glad you want to vote, but first you gotta make sure you're registered to vote. There's a link in the description where you can check your registration status right now. If you're not registered or you need to update your name or address, you can register online using the link below as long as you have a valid Maryland driver's license or state ID. If you don't have a Maryland ID, maybe you're a student from another state or you just don't drive, you'll have to download the form in the description and mail it in. I know that's kind of a pain, but it's important, so do it anyway. Whichever way you register, you have until 9 p.m. on October 18th to do it. Great, so you're registered. Now you can vote. If you prefer to vote from the comfort of your own home, you can request to vote absentee by mail. If you have a Maryland ID, you can apply for an absentee ballot using the same website you used to register. If not, there's a printable application in the description below. If you want your ballot mailed to you, the deadline to submit your form is November 1st. But you can also choose to just go to the State Board of Elections website, print off the official ballot yourself, and mail it in. If you do that, you'll have until November 4th to request to vote absentee. Either way you get your ballot, you have to mail it back by November 8th for it to be counted. You can also vote early in person between October 27th and November 3rd. There's a list of early voting sites in the description, and they're all open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. that week to give you extra time to vote. If you want to vote on November 8th, there's a link in the description that will tell you which polling place you're supposed to go to. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and you may be asked to show identification, especially if it's your first time voting. So bring a current photo ID like a driver's license, state ID, or student ID, or a recent piece of mail with your name and address on it, like a utility bill, paycheck, or bank statement. Before you head to the polls, you can go to the link in the description to look at a sample ballot that tells you everything you'll be able to vote for in your county. You don't have to vote for every single thing on the ballot, you can leave things blank if you want to, but your local elections can be very important, so it's worth checking out what's on there ahead of time. You can even print out the sample ballot, fill it out, take it to the poll with you so you don't forget how you wanted to vote. All the links you need to register and get your absentee ballot and your polling location, your sample ballot are all in the description. Thank you for voting. Hello, Colorado! If you're watching this, hopefully it's because you want to vote. And if you want to vote, you also have to be registered to vote. You can check if you're already registered using the link in the description. If you're not registered, or if you've moved since the last time you voted and you need to update your registration, there's a few ways you can do that. If you have a valid Colorado driver's license, there's a link in the description where you can go register online right now. But maybe you don't have one, maybe you don't drive, or you're a student from another state, you'll need to use the link below to print out a form and mail it in by October 17th if you want to vote in the November election. If you're able to register online, your deadline is a little bit later, but you still need to make sure you register online by October 31st in order to vote on November 8th. Now, once you're registered, you get to do the actual voting thing. For most people in Colorado, that means voting by mail. As long as you're registered by the deadlines I mentioned, a ballot will get mailed to your home address. There is nothing special you need to do to request it. It just shows up. You can fill that ballot out at your own pace at home, take your time to research the candidates and their ballot measures if you want to, and then mail your ballot back with enough time for it to arrive at your county clerk's office by 7 p.m. on election day. If it's your first time voting by mail, you'll also need to send in a photocopy of a form of ID. That could be a valid Colorado driver's license, passport, student ID, a current utility bill or bank statement with your name and address on it, or some less common forms. The full list will be printed on your ballot. And that's it. That is all you have to do to vote in Colorado. But hey, maybe you missed those registration deadlines, or it's election day and you forgot to mail in your ballot. Do not panic. The state of Colorado really wants you to be able to vote. If you go to govotecolorado.com, you can look up your voter services and polling location. You can show up in person with a valid ID from the list I just mentioned and register to vote in person from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on election day. You can also hand deliver your mail-in ballots to these locations if you already got it and filled it out but didn't send it in on time, and it will be counted. And while you're on govotecolorado.com, make sure you check out a sample ballot if this last-minute voting thing has you stressed out and you want a chance to see what's on the ballot and figure out how you want to vote before you go to the polls. And remember, the poll workers at your voting location are there to help you, so don't be afraid to ask questions. There will be links to everything you need to make sure you're registered and find your voter services and polling location in the description. Thank you for voting. Hello, the entire state of Tennessee. Before you can vote, you have to be registered to vote. If you're not sure if you're registered already, you can check using the link in the description. And if you find out that you are not registered yet, or you need to update your name or address, you'll need to fill out a registration form. The only way to register in Tennessee is by mail, on a piece of paper with a stamp and everything, which I know is kind of a pain, but you can print off the form online using the link below and mail it in by October 11th if you want to be registered in time for the November presidential election. Otherwise, you can find a paper application at a public library, a county election commission office, or a county clerk's office if you don't have access to a printer. Once you register, you get to go vote. In certain situations, you can vote absentee by mail, like if you'll be out of state on election day, and that includes if you're a student in another state but would prefer to vote in Tennessee. If you're over 60 or you have an illness or disability or religious belief that prevents you from going to the polls, you can also vote absentee. If any of those apply to you, you will need to type out your name, address, social security number, date of birth, address you want your ballot mailed to, the election you want to participate in this case, the state and federal general election on November 8th, and the reason you want to vote absentee. Then you need to sign that document and mail it or email it to your county's election commissioner. A link to their contact information is in the description. Yes, there's no form, you just have to send them a letter. You can request your ballot anytime between now and November 1st, but the sooner you get your request in, the sooner you will get your ballot, and the longer you'll have to look it over, research candidates, and vote before you send it in by November 8th. For everybody else, if you want to vote early, you'll need to do it in person. From October 19th to November 3rd, any registered voter can skip the election day lines and vote at a county election commission office or satellite voting location. The hours and locations vary by county, so check your county elections website before you go. You can also find out more about voting early on Tennessee's voter information app. It's called GoVoteTN, and it's a good resource to find your polling places and times, as well as a sample ballot, and there's a link in the description to where you can download it. If you want to vote in person on November 8th, election day, you can find out where you need to go using the app or the link in the description. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. if you live in the Central Time part of Tennessee, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. if you're in Eastern Time. You'll need to bring an ID with you, like a Tennessee driver's license, state ID, military ID, handgun carry permit, or passport. If you don't have any of those, you can get a free voter ID at a driver services center. There's a link to those locations below. I also suggest you check out your county election commission's website or the GoVoteTN app to look at a sample ballot that tells you everything you're going to be able to vote for this election. You don't have to vote for every single item on the ballot. You can leave things blank if you want to, but local elections can be very important, so it's worth checking out what's on there ahead of time. You can even print out a sample ballot and bring it with you to the polls so you don't forget how you wanted to vote. All the links you need to check your registration, to register, to vote early, to find your polling location, and get a sample ballot are in the description below. Thank you for voting.